What is up, everybody? It's Cheddar. Today we're talking about what you need to know to do well in Chapter 3 of Spellbreak. So first things first, all the gameplay you see today is from the creator preview event that was held recently, and I was invited by Proletariat to participate in this. I am so thankful for this opportunity by them. I want to give a huge shout out to them. They're doing amazing things at the company with this game. A lot of love for them. So let's dive right in. These are the top 10 things you need to know to succeed in Chapter 3 of Spellbreak. Number 1. So this one's a little bit less about the gameplay itself, but they did finally add something we've been wanting for a long time, loadouts. So what you can do is before the game starts and jump in the queue, you can pick all kinds of things for each class. So before, if you wanted to switch from Pyromancer to Tempest and change all your skins and everything like that to look like a new Tempest player, you had to go in your collections and change it manually. Now you can assign each class a set of objects. So for instance, you can pick your outfit, your artifacts, your cloudbursts, your afterglow, all those things that would normally be manually chosen, you can now customize for each class. It's super sick. While it's not vital for gameplay, it is super nice to instill fear in all your opponents, if you know what I mean. Number 2, the first thing you'll notice about the gameplay is the centered camera. So before, in every chapter of Spellbreak, and even in the beta testing, they used the legacy camera. So what that means is the character model was just a little bit off of center from the camera you see in game. So your aim was a little bit left of center. That was standard. Now the character model is right in the middle. It took a lot to get used to when I first started playing, but now that I'm used to it, I'm hooked and I can't go back. So they do offer the legacy camera still in Chapter 3, but I do not recommend it. The aim is much more true to the crosshair with the centered camera, and it feels much more natural. They also allow you to adjust the field of view, or FOV, in the game now as well. I set it to max for PC because for me that just means I can see a lot more on the screen at once, and I can kind of know what's coming. But on console, if the screen's far away from you, you may want a little more detail to have the FOV be a little bit shallower. It's all a matter of preference. Number 3. So crouch is gone. Crouch is dead, long live crouch. However, it was replaced with a much better thing, dodge. So it's very similar to dash, however it's only horizontally. It's on a 1.5 second cooldown, and you get a new keybind for it. Because this super short cooldown, it's really effective with runes like Spring Step and Dash. In this gameplay you're watching, I used it primarily to use in lateral movement in opposite directions to my rune movement. This made it much harder for opponents to track me as I moved around the field. It's not super viable in midair because it takes momentum from your movement into the speed and distance of the dash. However, throughout the preview, I used dodge like a ground dash. I talked about this tech in a previous movement video I posted a little while back. There's going to be a card up above and a link in the description down below if you want to check that out. Highly recommend it. Using it like a ground dash allows you to go much further, much faster, and evade your opponents a lot easier. Number 4. Levitation feels a lot different. So it feels much slower and your character feels a lot heavier, but because of that, you have to use lateral movement much more with your rune and just staying on the ground. It makes things easier. Due to this, talents like Dexterity and Athletic are a lot more effective in this chapter. Both these talents give you faster horizontal movement, so using these talents will be a lot more effective. One thing they did change about Levitation is that now your vertical speed with Levitation is now constant no matter when you use it, and instant. So before, if you were falling and started pressing your Levitation button, you would slow down and then begin to go upwards after a period of time. Now you move up instantly when you press that keybind. Before, if you were falling, you wanted to dodge something, you had to use either a sorcery cancel, which I also talked about in that previous video, or you have to use a rune to move out of the way. Now, if you have some mana left over, you can just levitate and dodge it upwards. It took some getting used to, but I kind of like it. Number 5, map changes. So the map overall went through a lot of changes. We only played Dominion in this preview event, but even in just those 4 little zones I played in, I got a ton of changes. So what I think overall is that Tempest and Stone got the most benefit out of these map changes. So the area around the zones on the ground itself is a lot larger now. So Stone Shapers can be either in the zone and have more area to shoot outwards towards people, or be outside of the zone and have a lot easier time of slamming the ground and hitting people inside the zone. However, I believe Tempest also got a buff because of these map changes, especially in Banehelm. In the gameplay you see, there are a lot of floating rocks, ledges, platforms to stand on that aren't on the ground. So I had a field day in these zones because I could just fly around, bounce off of things, hang out in the air. It gave me a lot easier time to be in the area of the zone without being easy to hit. Number 6, AOE changes. Area of effect damage got hard nerfed this chapter. So when I was playing this event, it did not feel oppressive. It was still very effective if used properly and could do a lot of damage, but the damage values themselves were greatly reduced. It may even be the case that the radius of damage was reduced as well, I'm not sure. Because of this, as someone on the receiving end of AOE, you're able to stick it out a little bit longer in your zones in Dominion. On the other hand, as the user of AOE, you have to be a lot more wise in using it. Because of reduced damage, I would only recommend using it if there are multiple people at a time in one area to get lots of damage off, not using it in just to hold a zone of Dominion. Number 7, Windspam. So in previous chapters, you could just hold down left or right click on your mouse with wind and just absolutely erase people from the game. So the hitbox for wind was huge before. You could aim away from them and still hit them pretty much. Even though it was little damage over time, just little ticks off here and there with 3s or 4 damages over the course of a few seconds, it does a lot of damage because the rate of fire is so fast of Tempest. Now the hitbox has been greatly reduced from what it was before. Because of this, Windspam as a whole concept is much less effective. You have to be a lot more precise and perfect with your aim than you did from before. Because of this, I recommend using Windspam only if they're basically dead, they have less than 20 health, or as an introduction to a fight to kind of just get a check on how much health they have. Number 8, Tox Spray. So if you remember, in chapter 2, they changed Tox a lot in that the spray was much narrower than it was before, and the distance it shot was a lot shorter. In chapter 3, the spray goes a little bit further than it did in chapter 2, which I think is a good thing. However, it's even narrower than before. Now it's essentially a shotgun. So the spread is pretty narrow, and the range is relatively far. It's not super far still. I wouldn't use it as a long range gauntlet because it won't go over long range, it'll just disappear. But close range, it's really good. It's a lot easier to hit someone with full slaps if you're right on top of them because of the new camera as well as the narrower spray. It does a ton of damage up close. Number 9, Stone Slam. So Stone overall, their usual just basic attack got a nerf as well. The hitbox is a little bit smaller. It wasn't a huge difference. I didn't play Stone Shaper in this preview event, but from what I heard from my peers, there wasn't a big difference in the hitbox, but it was nerfed. You have to be a little more accurate with your Stone Slam. Because of this, it's also easier to counter against Stone. While Levitation was nerfed this chapter, horizontal movement was buffed, so it's a lot easier to dodge Stone Slams even while you're on the ground. And finally, number 10, Fireball. So the fire projectile was changed a little bit. It feels a lot better and more true to the crosshair than it did in chapter 2. While everything does in standard cam, fire especially felt really good. I'm not sure, but I feel like the projectile was a little bit slower, so I had to lead a person a little bit more than before with the fireballs and kind of shoot ahead of them as they're moving, but it just made the shot all that more satisfying. Alright guys, that'll be it for this video. Hope you guys learned something. I want to give a huge thanks to Proletariat again for the opportunity to play in this. I had a ton of fun. Hope to do it again in the future. If you learned something, leave a like, I really appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button and check out my previous videos all about movement. I have a whole playlist of guides all about Spellbreak. Make sure to check it out. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys later.